In 2024, South Korea's first crewed mission to the moon ends in a tragic disaster when an explosion occurs on board. Now, in 2029, South Korea is attempting to send 3 astronauts on a crewed mission to the moon. Woori-ho marked Korea's second attempt at launching a moon exploration rocket, aiming to become the second country, after the United States, to conduct research on the moon's surface for valuable resources like helium-3. The astronaut team, consisting of Lee Sang-won, Cho Yoon-jong, and Hwang Sun-woo, was carefully selected for their expertise. Despite Hwang Sun-woo's limited piloting experience, his Navy SEAL training set him apart, providing valuable skills for navigating challenging situations. As soon as Woori-ho was launched, another anomaly happened. Due to unprecedented solar winds, the satellites had to be shut down, and even the USA's manned lunar gateway was affected by the crisis. The 3 astronauts were out there in the void approaching lunar orbit, and the Korean team had no means to communicate with them. They all took a breath of relief when somehow, the astronauts made contact and told them that they were all safe. Lee and Cho were checking the spacecraft from the outside, and they believed that they would be able to repair it. Sun-woo, who had limited knowledge about the technology, was getting all paranoid at every little alarm inside the spacecraft. The astronauts noticed that there was a leak in the fuel tank, and before they could even process this information, there was a huge explosion in which Cho Yoon-jong immediately lost his life, though Commander Lee managed to hold on to his hatchet and not get blown away by the explosion. Lee realizes that he won't be able to make it out of there alive, and in his last moments, he asks Sun-woo to reboot the full system power so that he can get the communications on and return safely. Sun-woo stood there and saw Commander Lee open his hatch and said that his lifeless body attached to the ship could compromise its movements and jeopardize his safe landing. Lee lets go and floats away into the oblivion. At the Space Research Center, facing a critical situation, the decision is made to call in the spacecraft's sole surviving designer, Kim Jae-guk. Kim emphasizes that the command module has a 3-week survival window in its current state and suggests seeking NASA's help via the Lunar Gateway. However, NASA and the International Space Committee had expelled Korea for pursuing independent technology development outside the consortium. In a desperate plea, the minister reveals that the life at stake is Hwang Sun-woo, son of Kim's late colleague Hwang Kyu-tae, who committed suicide after their first mission failure. Kim urgently directs Sun-woo to reorient the spacecraft, utilizing the thrusters to face the sun and preventing him from freezing to death due to the damaged heating system. Simultaneously, Kim takes charge of the mission to bring the spacecraft back home, successfully maneuvering it into a stable orbit around the moon. But Sun-woo was of the opinion that instead of waiting there and putting his faith in others, he should try to land on the moon. He was adamant about making use of the autopilot and whatever help and guidance he could get from the Space Center. Kim tells Sun-woo to wait for the Lunar Gateway, which will arrive at his position in 2 days, but Sun-woo tells Kim that he was not able to save his father, so he shouldn't put his life in his hands. Sun-woo was ready to defy the odds and became the first Korean to carry out explorations on the surface of the moon. Landing the lunar module against all expectations, Sun-woo achieves the extraordinary, bringing immense pride to his nation. He steps onto the moon's surface and sets the South Korean flag. He took his fellow astronauts' uniform and pictures with their family, and placed it on the moon's surface. However, the victory is only partial, as the looming threat of a meteor shower poses a new danger. The dreaded meteor shower started happening when Sun-woo was collecting samples from the surface of the moon. He had to rush towards his aircraft, and when he tried to propel his lunar car forward to escape that region, he met with a terrible accident as meteors impacted near him. Sun-woo uses the drone to lift himself and manages to get inside the lander in time. He manages to launch it before the meteors hit the lunar module site and gets into the command module orbit. The docking with the command module is completed, but before Sun-woo can transfer into the command module, the meteor shower hits the command module and destroys it. On Kim's suggestion, Sun-woo manages to detach the lunar lander module from the command module in the nick of time. But the lander loses communications with Space Command back on Earth, along with his life support system signal. Meanwhile, Kim tried to contact his ex-wife, Yoon Moon-young, who was in a high position at NASA. Kim knew that NASA had their astronauts on the Lunar Gateway, and that they could help save Sunwoo's life. Moon-young wanted to help Kim, but there were clear directives from the government that they didn't want to provide any sort of assistance because of the political tension that had happened after the first Korean mission, which had led to Korea being taken out of the International Space Committee. Everybody back in Korea believed that Sunwoo had died, and even Kim had gone back to his place to drown himself in sorrow. But NASA knew that Sunwoo was still alive, as the Lunar Gateway had intercepted the radio messages that he was trying to send to his space station. Moon-young's conscience didn't allow her to just sit there and let a man die when she knew that the astronauts could save him. She passed classified information on how to access a US satellite to Kim, informing him that Sunwoo was alive. Kim and his intern Hanbyul went to the observatory to connect with Sunwoo. Upon establishing a connection, Sunwoo informs Kim that his lander managed to land on the far side of the moon, and Hanbyul records their conversation and uploads it on YouTube. That small clip of Sunwoo and Kim talking created waves on social media, and US citizens came forward in support of the Koreans and asked their government to save the astronaut. The US government knew they had no other option but to go ahead with the rescue plan. The US grants permission for Woori-ho to dock with the Lunar Gateway, positioning it to receive the landing module. But when Sunwoo fires the rockets of his lander, the soft ground underneath gives way, and the lander tilts and only skims along the surface of the moon. Throughout the ordeal, Sunwoo carried the belief that his father, the second designer of the Naro spacecraft, was responsible for the tragic loss of the 3 astronauts aboard. He confided in Kim, revealing a letter from his father acknowledging faults in the engine but still proceeding with the plan. However, Kim makes a shocking revelation, confessing that Sunwoo's father was not at fault. In truth, it was Kim who, aware of the potential for the spacecraft to explode, had given the green signal to the mission 5 years ago. The possibility of an explosion was deemed highly unlikely, and, frustrated by numerous delays, Kim reached a breaking point. Losing patience, he decided not to wait any longer to secure Korea's position as the second nation, after the USA, to embark on a moon expedition. Having listened to Kim's revelation, Sunwoo experiences a profound sense of relief, as if a heavy burden has been lifted off his shoulders. Motivated once again, he prepares to approach the area near the US Lunar Gateway. Kim reconnects with Moon-young over the phone, and she instructs him to fire the rockets once more to maneuver the lander into orbit on the near side of the moon, where the Lunar Gateway is positioned. Moon-young emphasizes that the lander's current angle is already aligned in that direction, requiring only the activation of the rockets. Aware of the potential risk of being taken into custody by the guards, Moon-young secures her office room and initiates communication with the astronauts at the Lunar Gateway. Despite the absence of government directives, she encourages them to consider venturing out to rescue Sunwoo, emphasizing that it is within their power to demonstrate humanity's compassionate side to the world. With Kim's guidance, Sunwoo successfully accomplishes the task. While he doesn't reach orbit, he lands safely on the near side of the moon. Responding to the situation, the Lunar Gateway promptly launches a rescue ship to retrieve Sunwoo from the lunar surface. Following the successful and challenging mission, Korea was reinstated in the International Space Committee. The Korean president, recognizing the significance of the achievement, declared the intention to share the mission's findings globally for the benefit of humanity. Moon-young made history as the first female director of NASA, while Kim, having returned, dedicated himself to teaching and motivating the younger generation to aspire to become space explorers and contribute to the advancement of their nation and mankind. If you enjoyed this video, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a new release. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.